today, there's no prayer of the people, or there's no miracle. They say that God is not in the church. They begin to say, God is not in the church. Because there are those who are going to church, they are looking, they are scrolling on internet and looking. Where is this miracle? Where is this person who is going to raise the dead? Where is this person who is going to heal the sick? Who is going to give a prophetic word? And so when we come to church for all the wrong reasons, it is just a matter of time and you'll come out of church. And the clear thing is why we come first here to church is because of God. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God. And the reason we come here is Elohim. But many, when you ask them, they will not come because of Elohim. They are not coming because of God. There are so many other reasons that many would come. And when we talk about God, I take us to the book of Job, Job chapter 11 and verse 7. I begin with a question. It begins, Job 11 verse 7 begins with a question. Canst thou by searching, can you by searching find out God? That's a question. Can you by searching find him? Can you find him by searching? I don't know if you have ever looked for precious stones. I don't know if you have ever looked for gold. Or maybe you hear of them. You hear of them. You hear that they are precious stones. At some point I was interested into that. And let me tell you, you cannot find, you just hear. They're expensive. Bishop Greg was showing us the largest diamond that has been found in the last 100 years. 100 years. And showed us one of the stones of it was a star stone that he was showing us that had been found. You can search for precious stones. You can look for gold. You can look for diamond. You can look for, Kenya was doing an exploration for looking for oil, and they found oil. You can look for all those things and never find God. In fact, right now, the race is not even looking for God. The race is to go to the moon. The race now for man is life in the moon. Life in the moon. You are talking about buying a house here, a plot. People are thinking of how they are going to live in the moon. They have too much money. Their money, they have nothing to use it for, is to now book a space and to be living in the moon. They want to go to the moon to live there. You are talking about buying a plot here. Somebody is talking of buying space in the moon. And all that they are looking for. And they have found life. They have found so many other things. But you have to ask, man, in all this busy schedule of yours, from morning to evening, The year is coming to an end. Are you looking for God? And the reason why the Bible begins to tell us there in Job chapter 11, canst thou, part B, let me read verse 7, part B, canst thou find out the Almighty unto perfection? Can you find him unto perfection? Why? Because there everywhere. That he is omnipresent. His omnipresence means the quality state of being. It doesn't have an I here. Let's correct that. Omnipresent means that he's everywhere. He's everywhere. This is all powerful. All powerful. All knowing. So he's everywhere, but you're not finding him. You are looking for him everywhere. And he's everywhere. And you still can't find him. So this all-knowing of God, with the S here, omniscient, attained to as far as a building is concerned. Recently, we took our daughter, the fifth one, in a lift to the 10th floor of one of the buildings. And that lift on the 10th floor, it was see-through. See-through. Lift. See what you can see outside. And when the lift started going up, the child brought commotion. I think it was our first time, and you know, with there are lifts that are sealed. It's better to enter a sealed lift than to enter a lift that you can see outside. You are not seeing anything holding you. You're not seeing anything that is holding you. You are seeing yourself being suspended in there. And so when we started going up, the child started screaming to look for somewhere to hold. And there's nowhere to hold because it's a lift that is the one she's carrying you up. I remember again also, I took the children, there's this wheel, merry-go-round wheel. The biggest, it is in a place called Two Rivers. I took them there. And we entered, they were excited. They were looking excited. Oh, we want to go there. They just we want to enter there. But when we entered there, ile nduru ilikuwa hapo. They changed their mind. They changed their mind. They said, this is the worst thing we have ever entered into. We don't want. Immediately, we went one round like this, and we were to go 3 of them. They did not want to go another one. They didn't want to go another one. We are talking about the height. And when you enter an aeroplane, and this aeroplane takes off, every time you enter an aeroplane, you think you're going to die fast. When it starts taking off, there it goes, it starts flying off. And it flies, it enters into the air. And as it begins to fly and go, you start looking, people stop looking like people, they look like ants. They stop looking like ants. Buildings become so small. You are going high, and as you're going high, you are seeing now what we call now something big like this, Africa. You're just seeing land. You're seeing land. And that height we have gone, in the aeroplane, we have not even reached the ozone layer. And this is the physical realm. The distance between the physical realm and heaven can't even be measured. You can't measure it. Yet, for you to be absent in the body is to be present with the Lord. You don't need to take... Bishop Greg left us here, and he was delayed in Atlanta. He went through Paris, then he went to Atlanta, then Alabama. And he got delayed. He took almost... he left Sunday, Monday. It took almost 2 days traveling to reach Hapa to not far around here. He didn't go out of the world. Out of the world. And when you start thinking about God, there is no human explanations that we can give to satisfy your human reasoning or thinking. Your human reasoning or thinking. And it says here, what canst thou do? Because searching God, looking for God, is as high as heaven. The distance between here and heaven is as high. Leave alone the distance you went by aeroplane, you went by parachute. Where did you go? And it says, it is, verse 8, deeper than hell. Deeper now than hell. We're in Job chapter 11, and we're in verse 8. Deeper than hell. What canst thou know? What can you know? It is deeper. We have got in our country there, we have got a well. We have got a well that is there. It was dug by men. It went deep. I think maybe 30 meters deep. Sio mbali, 30 meters. But when you look down there, you don't want to. You are told that you enter there. Even when you're told digging, you won't want to go inside there. You don't want to go inside there. And if you want to have a nightmare of our generation, take them to a toilet ya latrine. Hii generation ya watoto wangu sasa wapeleke kwa choo. Look. Latrine. Look. Hey, how do you use a latrine? They'll be looking like this. They're saying, no, ask me to mezoea hii choo ya kukalia. Just to sit here and there. But this one, which is the whole, that one, no. But that's not hell. The distance between here and heaven can't be measured. The distance between here also and the depths of hell also can't be explained. Yet, in a blink of an eye, in the spirit realm, there's no even distance. You're in hell. 1 minute, Less, not even a minute, 1 second. Absent in the flesh. You have 2 eternities. Absent in the flesh. Your spirit is going to go. 1 second you find yourself in hell. Another second you find yourself in heaven. There are those who die when they are sleeping. Hata wajuangi wamekufa. Those who die when you are sleeping. Imagine you go to sleep, you don't wake up. So and so nenda kulala na kuamka. That person hata jua likufa. The person won't know. Even in an accident, for example, in an accident and you are sleeping. The sea is. Water is another no goes on, even for me personally. Water is a no goes on for me. I can swim in a swimming pool, but not a river and not the ocean. Hizo staki. No. In the river iko na mambo mingi. And also the sea has got a lot of things. But you go to Mombasa and you look like this and you see water with no end. You go on an aeroplane, leave alone that. Hata Nakuru, hapa Naivasha. You think you're reading GHC and you're just seeing a small thing imechorwa hapa at ini Lake Naivasha. It is not even recognized. It kadogo hivi. Then you see here Lake Victoria. You see, you can think Lake Victoria is a dam between here and Capital Center. Oh, you go there, you find Lake Victoria, haina mwisho. You look like this na macho haina mwisho. I don't know how they put the boundary between Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, because the boundary is in between Lake Victoria. Each one has a piece. Uganda has its piece, Kenya has its piece, and Tanzania has its piece. And hapo katikati, hapo ndo zinakutana. The 3 countries zinakutana hapo. Only those are spiritual things that they know what they did and what they did it for. So it says here that you are looking for God. I'm talking about looking for God. You are looking for God. If you start going up, you'll never find God. You start going down, you'll never find God. You try. You hear a storybook called Gulliver's Travel. Gulliver's Travel. Mama is the one who understands what Gulliver's Travel is. Our generation doesn't know what Gulliver's Travel is. Where he traveled, Gulliver was traveling, and he went somewhere and he slept. And when he woke up, people were as small as this finger. He found he has been surrounded by so many people. Now wamemfunga. Wamemfunga hivi. They say this is a giant. He was a giant. And he's seeing to small people walking around him. Where was he? He's looking around. Where? And they tied him. And they were shouting. They were like, "Whoa, this is a giant." And Gulliver tried now to stand up like this. Wacha watu wakimbie. Because he's a giant. You can imagine now. You are sleeping and you have been tied and he was a giant. And when he just lifted his head like this, wote wakaskata. And Gulliver could not eat. These people say this person is going to finish for us our food. He ate 30 cows without feeling anything. Anasikia njaa. Wanampatia ng'ombe ya kwanza, ya pili, ya tatu. It was like a small meat. If the person is small like this, then you give him, there are cows were smaller. Everything was small. Then Gulliver traveled. He continued just exploration, and he went and he found giants. He was now the opposite. He was now that small person. And people were giants. And Gulliver met, in the process, he met a rat. When he met that rat, it was a giant. And he had to fight with the rat to kill it, because he had a spear and he killed it. And when he was talking to those people, those giants, they had to carry him with a spoon like this to look at him and hear him, because he was very small. Now, about of Gulliver's travels, every time when we are coming here, there's something that we are searching. We are not in a Gulliver's travel. There, if you begin to travel and search out things, it says the measure there is you will not find God. Yet, God is everywhere. Yet, God is everywhere. Job makes something interesting in Job chapter 12 and verse 7, when he begins to tell them, but ask now the beasts. You ask the beasts. You man, because you see, man, when you look at man today, the modernization of man today has taken us so far from God, has taken us away. We have out of course, we have lost it. But beasts have not lost it. Imagine, animals have not lost it. Has taken over. Worldliness has come in. To teach us. But man, when you follow man, you're going to go astray. Man has lost it. Man has lost it. He's saying, you go ask beasts. They're in a better position. Imagine a cow is in a better position to teach us about God than fellow man. You know the story of Balaam. A donkey could see better than the prophet. A donkey could see better, could see angels, could see the spiritual realm better than a prophet who was supposed to stand in behalf of God to man. And the donkey had to even speak in man's language and tell him, why are you beating me? I've saved you from dying. I'm seeing there's an angel of death. If I pass there, utakufa. An animal is in a better position than man to know about God. Now ask beasts, and they're able to tell you. Ask beasts, they're able to tell us about God. And it says, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. Birds, beasts are in a better position to tell us about spiritual things. Birds are in better position because man has lost it. Now, here is where, when we talk about finding God, we separated the Spirit of God, and I put verses, the Spirit of man. The Spirit of God versus the spirit of man. The book of Genesis tells us, this is Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6. And verse 3 says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man. The Spirit of God, something came between the Spirit of God and the spirit of man. There's something that came here. This is enmity. Is it enmity like that? Confirm that for you. Something came between the Spirit of God, which we are calling the fall of man. The fall of man. This enmity. Yeah, it's over here. This one, there's no enmity. T-Y. The Spirit of God separated from the spirit of man. Something came in between. So in Genesis chapter 6 verse 3, my spirit, God, that my spirit is talking about the Spirit of God fighting enmity between the spirit of man and of God. That is the fall of man. It came between man and God. So the Spirit of God, when that enmity came, which we are calling the fall of man, what happened there is explained here in Genesis chapter 6. This spirit of man, the Bible says, for that he also is flesh. He is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. In Genesis chapter 6 and verse 3. So, I want you to see here, the spirit of man is what is called here, he is flesh. The spirit of man is the life of flesh. The life of flesh. The life of flesh. The spirit of man gives life to the flesh. Gives life to the flesh. Gives life to the flesh. We can compare that verse in the book of Galatians. In the book of Galatians. Galatians chapter 5. Galatians chapter 5 verse 16 tells us, this I say then, walk in the Spirit, capital S. Walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. The lust of the flesh. The lust of the flesh in verse 17 tells us of this war. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit. The spirit of man fights against the Spirit of God. Fallen nature of the Spirit of God, of man, does not want the things of God. It is that fight is there, that enmity is there. And so it says, and the spirit against the flesh. So against the flesh, it says there, when you compare that verse, is the same verse in Genesis chapter 6 and verse 3, that God's Spirit says, my spirit is not always going to fight with the spirit of man. And my flesh, I'm still there in Galatians 5. I said Genesis. But put Galatians 5:17. And these are contrary the one to the other. The human spirit of God, its fallen nature, does not want the things of God. So it's not just about coming to church. Because when you come to church, you'll be coming for any other reason. If you are not coming because your spirit is making fellowship with the Spirit of God, you have missed it. You have missed it. Because it's just a matter of time that your human spirit will get tired of coming to church. But when you come to church because it is the Spirit of God that is quickening you, then you have got it right. Because somebody will tell you, I'm going to come to church. Someone is going to tell you, I'm going to visit you, I'm going to be with you. But that's not the whole point. The point is that when we are coming together, there is something that is working. The power of the Spirit of God is working in us. And says, so you are fighting something that is contrary. It's the flesh that doesn't want the things of God. So the flesh doesn't want. In fact, it sees church as foolish. There's somebody today, one of your friends, your acquaintances, your family members, you tell them, I'm in church. And akwambia, what are you doing in church? Who ask you, what are you doing in church? The person will ask you, are you mad to be in church on Thursday? But no one will ask you on Monday if you tell them I'm in a bar. No one will ask you. You say, oh, you're just taking alcohol, okay. But you tell somebody I'm in church on Monday. Ini wenda zimu ya ng'ombe. What is he doing in church on Monday? Because the human spirit does not want the things of God. It doesn't want. It doesn't want. It feels no. But when you're doing any other thing, it doesn't get tired. You can watch TV. When you're watching television, you can watch even 3 days without getting tired. Prayer, 5 minutes. Prayer, 5 minutes. And your human spirit is tired. Is tired. So now God will say, so that you cannot do the things that you would. So you cannot do the things that you are supposed to do. So God had to, in the process of time, now begin to work against this enmity. Whatever came between the Spirit of God and the spirit of man, that searching that we got lost, God had to break it. So how did it start? It started in the Old Testament when God began to work through Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Israel. And so we have that, the whole book of Genesis. But there's something interesting that happens in the time of Exodus. And in Exodus is when now God asks the people, and this is what it tells them now in the book of Exodus chapter this is 1 minute. They have now come out in Exodus first, Exodus chapter 20. In Exodus chapter 20, and God spoke all these words, verse 1, Exodus 20 verse 1, saying, verse 2, I am the Lord your God. I'm your Lord your God. And I have got you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. God, he begins to explain to man the bondage that he went into. He had no fellowship with God. He had no relationship. Over the years, I've got to find out there is nothing that can bother a parent than having their child go astray. A prodigal child. A prodigal child is a thorn to the flesh. So when God was creating man, he did not create man to be a servant. No, man was not to be a servant. Angels are servants. Man was created to be family. Family. Relationship. So God had family in man. Son is what God had in man. Not servants. Not machines. So God now began to explain to man that I have to come back. I have to come back into man to restore the lost race, the lost human race, entire race. So he gives them the 10 commandments, and from the 10 commandments, God tells them in Exodus chapter 25, verse 8. Exodus 25, verse 8. And let them make me a sanctuary. God was saying, I've given you 10 commandments, but I need now to break this enmity. I need to dwell among you. And I'm going to dwell among you in what we are calling today church. Is what we are calling today church. When you see people in the community tell us we are making noise, I see their blindness, I see their foolishness. Church is not supposed to be in the sea. Church is not supposed to be in the sea. Church is supposed to be in the neighborhood. In fact, you're supposed to plan yourself around church. You're supposed to plan. But now, you hear the complaint, ati nyumba kumi, inasema, kanisa mnapiga kelele, sijui nini, you're making false noise. You're devil worshippers, you're telling us they were making noise. That's how we know you're a devil worshipper. Why? God, they were supposed to, he said, I need a sanctuary among you. In between you. You have no problem if there's a prostration in between you. You have no problem if there's a mortuary in between you. You have no problem when there's a supermarket in between you. You have no problem with any other thing being in the neighborhood. You have no problem with a bar. The problem you have is with the church. And then you know what? Us Christians are there and we keep quiet. No, we should tell them you are wrong. You are wrong. Remember your creator. Even that mouth you are using to speak today is just a matter of time. You will not have it. That same mouth you're saying, you're making noise. That same mouth you're saying, you're making noise. What do you mean we are making noise? We are having fellowship with our creator. And he is supposed to be in our midst. And he officially meets us in the sanctuary, which is among. So that enmity already tells you, when you see somebody in a fight and I say, no, where do you want the church to be? In fact, you have no problem with a mosque being in church, being in the neighborhood. You have only a problem with a church. And if you want to make it worse, fanya kesha, watakuua. Leave alone now, everyone is busy making noise, watching news and 7 o'clock news and whatever, and all the soap operas. Man, remember your creator. So imagine God has to ask man to be in his midst. He has to ask you, please, can I come in between? I need a place in between. That is how big the enmity is. That God had to tell them, I need space in between you. I'm seeing all your houses. I'm seeing all your beasts. I'm seeing everything. There's space for your car. There's space for your TV. There's space for your clothes. There's space for your food. There's no space for God. Every other thing has space. You know the story of the children who are going for a party, and their mother told them that she wanted to pray for them before they went. And the teenagers told her, there's no space for God in this car. Maybe in the boot. If you want to pray, the space we are going to give God, ni kwa boot. Let God stay in the boot. There are two versions of it. There is one who had an accident, and there was a full tray of eggs. Full tray of eggs. And the boot was intact. But these ones did not have eggs. Wao walienda, wakapata accident, they all died, the all children died, and the boot was intact. It had not been touched. Where they said there's space for God in the boot. So that is the enmity that is there today. Man has no time for God. And it's about God. So when you are coming here, it's not stories. It is about spiritual things. Spiritual things. It's not about all those. They come with it. There is a time for deliverance. There's a time for prophecy. They come with it. But the first intention, our first motive, why I'm coming into the house, it is the house of God. It's a house of prayer. It's a place of God. You are coming to meet God. It's a place of atonement, meeting God, us having time with our Maker. That's why Jesus said, if you're going to pray, pray our Father. So you are taking time out of all that you're doing that has nothing to do with God, but your human spirit, you are coming now to have fellowship with God. And this was the prayer that Jesus was making in John. Now, from John chapter 17, in John chapter 17, Jesus' prayer, and let me read verse 23. So the word there is tabernacle, and two, I in them. I in them. I put a comma there because they put a comma there so that you can stop and think about it. I in them. Now it has gone from another level. It is not God in their midst. It's not a church now. It's not a sanctuary that God has been isolated. We have got us around God. We are staying around the church. We are staying around the sanctuary. God now would be seen as in the Old Testament by a pillar of fire, by a pillar of cloud. But now something is happening. He is saying now, I'm not only acknowledged around them, I in them. Inside. So you are looking for God. But God is saying now, I've made a provision for me to be in you. I want to be in you. I don't want just to be in a building. He does not dwell in buildings made by the hands of men. I inside them. I in them. I in them. That is the plan of salvation. That the spirit, the human spirit, and this is what I in them means now, he becomes Lord. He becomes Lord. He becomes Lord. The ruling spirit inside you, the ruling spirit inside you is now the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God. I in them. That's what he was praying. That in the Old Testament, it was the tabernacle. It was around them, upon the prophets. But now in the New Testament, there is something that is happening. There is that enmity that is being broken. Let me read for us in the book of Ephesians. Ephesians. This enmity is being broken in Ephesians chapter 2. I like what it says here in verse 14. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 14. For he is our peace, Jesus Christ, who hath made both one. Something is happening here. Your human spirit and the Spirit of God is becoming one. That is the peace that is being made. Your human spirit is becoming one with the Spirit of God, and he has broken down the middle wall of petition. That enmity, that spirit that was contrary to the things of God, the spirit that is antichrist. Antichrist, you are looking for antichrist, and antichrist is inside you. You are looking for a beast with big horns, and it is inside you. You're looking for, I'm looking for where is the antichrist? He's going to come from where? He's going to be, no, he's inside you. Antichrist, he does not want to read the word of God, doesn't want the things of God, doesn't want to fast. Oh, you talk of fasting. No. Pastor Shakahola. I'll die. And at the end of the day, you still die. But that middle wall, when it is broken, I in them, when that middle wall is broken, and now we have been reconciled to him, verse 15 says, having abolished in his flesh. Talk about Jesus Christ. The enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in himself, I in them, I am making in myself a new man. You become a new creation. That's why we say umeokoka. Kuokoka si kuja kanisani. You can still be living in the flesh or living according to the course of this world. For you to be born again, this is it. You have to be a new man. That enmity, that power that is working in the flesh. That's why Romans tells us, Romans chapter 8, verse 8. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. If you're in the flesh, if you're in your human spirit, you will never please God. If you come early to church, you have not pleased God. You give your tithe, you have not pleased God. You witness, you have not pleased God. When you mtu wa dini, you are a religious person. A religious person is somebody who is serving God in the power of the flesh. He's not born again. Christ is not in that person. The power, the Spirit of God is not in that person. You are not a new person. And in the spiritual realm, the Bible tells us there in verse 9, you can't please God. And even if you educate, you go take orphans, you go give charity, you go do Red Cross work, you are still in the flesh. All of it is filthy rags. Verse 9 tells us, but you are not in the flesh. A new person is not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. And because you are in the Spirit, you have got the Spirit of God. If so be that the Spirit of God, this is what is key, has to dwell in you. I in them, the Spirit of God dwelling in you. Now, if you do not have the Spirit of God, of Christ, inside you, you are not His. That is the key thing. If the Spirit of the power of God is not operating inside you, even if you sing, I'm a tender member from morning to evening, you have not pleased God. Even if you do any good work, you're still none of His. Any second out of your physical body, you will go to hell. Out of this body, straight to hell. Why? Because God now has made the provision through Jesus Christ for us to be one, making one new person. One new person. That new person is the one who has the zeal for the things of God. That new person does not fight with the things of God. It's time for prayer. No, Madonna. What do you mean to normal? That new person cannot fight the things of God. That new person loves the things of God. That new person doesn't need to be told, come to church. That new person already is already driving. The human spirit is subject. You will feel